Come on. And we are live. Woo! Yes. Yes, we are live. Let me close these windows on my computer so they don't go off. I can get back to all of that later. Yes, we're going to let some people come into the room on this Thursday. It feels like Monday. I don't know about, I mean, it feels like March already, April, Justin.
I would agree. I mean, we got snow again today and more tonight. So once that's over, I'll feel like it's more springtime.
Exactly. Hi Dave, how are you? Good to see you as always. My regulars, my convo crew. People are coming to the room. We're competing with the Michelle Can pianist, who is this live streaming her. Well, no, live streaming her fantastic recording with the Philadelphia Orchestra.
Huh.
Yeah, starting at 8:00. Piano, one of Florence Price's piano sonatas, I think. I forget what it is. I should know, but because I bought a ticket and I'm like, I'm gonna as soon as we're off of here, we're gonna see it. Hey, how are you, sir? Mr. Happy Day. Yes, it's gotten a lot better. Hi, Martin. Good to see you. Yes, the crew is in the house. So happy Thursday to everyone. I'm so tired that I'm just having a pink. What is this? A strawberry and lemon, some kind of sparkly thing from Trader Joe's. So no alcohol, no wine today. We don't keep it, legal today. We're both so young.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So you know what to do, y'all. Y'all share this link to your pages and all that good stuff. Anyway, hi Rebecca. Good to see you, Kenny. Hi, Rebecca. Kenny Overton, killing it. Yes. Good to see you, Kenny, as always. Yeah, keeping it. Anyway, Justin, I have been wanting Justin to come on the show since I think like late pandemic, like fall, whatever. And I reached out. We were Instagram because we're both Instagram buddies. Hey, Anna. Good to see you. And yeah, and I was like, yeah, I want you to, I said, will you come on the show? I got to have you on the show. And, everything is just flying and my life is taking off like a rocket, which is amazing. But I have made it a point to have all of the people in our industry, wanting to talk to everyone and wanting you in particular, Justin, someone who has a wonderful agency filled with so many of my friends on your roster, and also an agent of color, which is very, very important. And I want us to talk about that too, and how we can advocate for more people, and more artist managers. Anyway, I'm going to say a little bit about who you are, and I'm gonna let you talk about yourself a little bit. Now I was supposed to bring up your resume. Anyway, I'm gonna let you talk, Justin. Tell the people, because I can't find your resume, but tell the people, share with us.
It's all good. It's boring. So no, hey everybody, thank you for tuning in, and thank you, Karen, for the opportunity. My name is Justin Werner. I am the founder of Stratagem Artists, one of the many hats I've worn in this industry. I was a singer, I was a producer, I interned at a large management firm, and then now started my own boutique. It's been really exciting to see the world just expand in such an exciting way, even through this pandemic, to have the opportunities to expand our company, even during a time like this, has been incredibly rewarding, and an opportunity to get to know folks, like everyone on watching. And yeah, it was a really organic process going from mediocre singer to sort of necessary producer, going through a Fox change from baritone to tenor. I needed something to keep my brain awake, and founded an opera company here in New York City. Ran that for 5 years, which was an incredible learning experience you could only do in your 20s. And now to represent so many people I idolize and admire, and to be able to be a really big part of their career development is an honor, number one, but it's definitely the most fun I've ever had in a job. Not during the pandemic, to lose the travel and hearing live performance and auditions, but to be surrounded by this art form every day is a privilege.
Oh man, I love when artists, in particular managers, hear them speak about their clients and to speak about the art form in a way, because we don't get to see the artist managers. We only get to, see an email or to hear, I mean, not as artists, but I mean just in general.
Sure.
It's like you're behind behind the scenes, and so so much. And so when I get the opportunity to have the managers or agents or casting directors, whatever that is, come and speak about the art form so passionately, I love it. I love it. You got some people sending you some love. Yeah. Is that a family member?
It is. It's my wonderful mother. I have my team, and I know a bunch of clients are tuning in tonight. And I would not be here without family to support me through this not pragmatic business we're in. Is to have their support, my wife's support, and family and friends is huge. And I don't think any of us could be here without each other. And Michelle, hi Michelle. Michelle Johnson. When I was a freshman in college, Michelle was our Mahler 2 soloist, and it was the first choral performance I had done outside of my little high school bubble. And Michelle opened her mouth, and I was just like, that, whatever that is, I want to be part of that. And now to, represent so many friends, Michelle and Brian included. My undergrad voice teacher is on my roster, which was the ultimate circle of life moment for me, to have him come to New York right after the pandemic, or right before the pandemic, to sing some arias for me and to talk strategic planning. It was a very odd change of pace.
I'm sure. I want you to talk about how you go from, as you say, mediocre singer, like how did you get into singing, into classical singing, into opera, and then talk a little bit about what was it that you what happened and you made the choice to jump off the ship, as one would say.
Oh, for sure. So I really didn't grow up with classical music. It wasn't a big part of my childhood. Mm-hmm. And I sang in church as a kid. I was in a cappella. I was in the choir, but I wasn't, a Tanglewood kid or summer stock musicals. I just wasn't sort of plunged into that world too early, which I'm really thankful for. To be able to have a wide variety of life experience has really helped me. So my junior of high school, we got a new choir director who was a wonderful pianist from Eastman. And when we had our choir placement exams at the beginning of the year, she asked me, have you ever thought about making singing a career? And I really didn't think singing could be a career. I had not ever thought of it as more than a hobby. And she was incredibly helpful to me and prepped Donza for college auditions. And, I still have my undergrad audition tapes, and they're pretty brutal. Sometimes when I need a little ego check, I just put that in the headphones. I'm like, you're representing really good things. But I had never been to an opera going into my freshman year at BU. It just wasn't something that not that I didn't have access to it. I definitely went to Broadway shows growing up in New York, and had so much culture around, but opera just was a, sort of inaccessible pipe dream at the time. I remember my freshman year just listening to the same Notze recording with Dawn Upshaw and Thomas Hampson over and over and over, and really falling in love with the theatrical nature of what we do, the synthesis of every artistic form in one evening. Then, hearing Michelle in that Mahler 2 was a big wake-up call for me. And then my freshman year, I saw my first opera, which was La Boheme, at my school. And it was almost Postcard from Morocco, which I'm very glad was not my first opera, because I wouldn't be here right now. Even though I really like the piece.
I get it. I get it.
Opera.
Right.
Lady with the hat is not like,
Mm-hmm.
Ikema no me. But I saw Bohème and just fell in love with the entire spectacle. Went through undergrad as a very good student, figuring out the singing. I bounced between baritone and tenor in college, never really making that jump, which I probably should have. And when I graduated undergrad, I wasn't ready for grad school. Vocally, it was a bit of a mess. And actually, in my senior year of college, I started a little production company with some colleagues of mine who weren't given performance opportunities as undergraduates to put on a scenes concert. And putting on that producer hat was one of the best things I ever did, just to learn how to deal with a wide variety of personalities, to learn how to cast a program, and to create an evening that's not only helpful to enrich the singers that are in it, but the audience, more importantly. So I came home to New York after undergrad, a bit humbled after grad school auditions did not go as planned. And then I made the switch to tenor that year to really commit to doing what I should have done years before. So while I was going through a Fox change, I really wanted to figure out something to do. And I ended up going back to my old high school and teaching music. And they gave me an opportunity to do a scenes concert with professional orchestra and singers, but to use my students as the chorus. So I had 24 high schoolers singing the Champagne chorus from Fledermaus and Act One finale of Elixir, which I'm still in touch with some of those kids. And it's really sort of hooked them into being, audience members and patrons for us for the future. And I founded my opera company, the New York Opera Exchange, from that concert, ran that for 5 years. Learned a lot about how to produce opera on a budget, how to listen to singers not only for specific roles, but for long-term career trajectory. And the one thing I really pulled away from that company, I guess two things. Number one, I did a lot of jobs. As a artistic director at a small company, you do a lot. You're building sets, you're cutting costumes, you're talking to the orchestra, you're everywhere at once. Again, something I could only do in my 20s. But it really gave me such an appreciation for those behind the scenes. And we really didn't want to hire someone for a job unless we had done it first. So to just be in the shoes of so many of my colleagues, it gives me a better appreciation for what our pianist colleagues do, what our makeup people do, what our costumers do. I mean, such amazing wide purview of skill sets that you need to put on an opera. And while I was running the company, I went to grad school at Queens College with my teacher, Sherry Overholt, who whipped me into a tenor very quickly. And sort of halfway through, I figured out that I wanted to use my brain in a different way. That when I would talk to my colleagues at lunch during rehearsals, it was never about my singing. It was always about theirs. What's next? What companies are you auditioning for? What young artist programs are you interested in? What roles do you think you'll be singing 2, 5, 10 years down the line? And I took that energy, interned at IMG with Matthew Horner and Bill Pallant and Charlotte Lee. I mean, what a amazing group to learn from. And from there, I decided, sort of out of necessity, because for 2 years, I was too young to be a real manager and too experienced to be an entry-level person, which was really frustrating. And for a while, I thought my time in the industry might be over.
Really?
I really wasn't finding that spot. I got to a lot of final interviews, but not any offers. And I did think that I wanted to create something on my own, but I also, of course, needed to be financially viable, as we all do. But starting my own company is one of the best things I've ever done. Also, I think when we started in 2015 with my first company, we already had Anna Giarcelletta and Alex Fletcher and Guy Barzilay and so many others who were leading that boutique charge that I think 5 years before that didn't really exist. So to have that group to lean on for advice, to be really inspirational. Honestly, it was so important, and I hope we can do the same for the pipeline behind us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even in the last year, even just before pre-pandemic, maybe like 8 months before, there were other, Adam came into the fold with a
Mhm.
Promethean, and and a few others, and now during the pandemic, so many other agencies, boutiques have come up. And for a long time you didn't have a lot of options as an artist. There is this kind of like, the bigger business agencies, and then
Mhm.
you have the smaller boutique, more intimate relationship with your clients in a way agency. And it's like, as I think, I don't know if it's like that in other genres, if it's like that in music theater, or if it's like that in film and television, but for opera, because it's such a specific, and then there's the difference between having a concert agent and having a full-on opera agent, and all of the intricacies there as well. I think it's nice to have options. It's nice to have more with so many artists,
Oh, absolutely. And there's so many amazing artists who don't yet have representation. Not that representation is the right fit for every artist, but
Mhm.
I really think the more options we have, especially those who come with a basis of knowledge to help singers, like so many of my colleagues, the better we'll be. To have a European agent and an American agent, to have agents in other markets, to have someone strictly for concert, to have someone for your theater work. There are a lot of options. And, I do think the sort of corporate managers, it depends not on the size of the firm, but on the dedication of the manager to make those personal connections. By no means do only boutique managers have those sort of personal relationships with their singers. I know plenty of singers with IMG or Harrison Parrott or any of those that have that sort of quick text sort of communication.
Yes.
But I do think as a boutique, it gives us the opportunity to, especially during a pandemic, to not have office space for us was a godsend. To not be paying that sort of overhead, to have a small staff, to be able to work from my home is huge for our survival, and is one of the big reasons we've been able to expand, and to survive and thrive via Zoom, as we all are.
Right.
So I've learned so much from my colleagues, and by no means is Stratagem perfect, but I definitely want to be the sort of manager that I would have wanted as an artist, and the pragmatic but aggressive promotion of what I think is some of the best talent in the world.
Absolutely. I often say that, about my future, when I go into the next phase of my career, I want to be what I would want, the kind of administrator that I would want to deal with, or the kind of administrator that, speaks to agents in the way that I feel like I would want someone to represent me, very much. That's what that, and it goes back to doing the jobs, right? Having done the work and understanding, what it is you feel like, is the right job, is the right way, is the, having the experience.
Absolutely. And just getting into, especially for singers, since I was a singer, to get into that mindset of showing up to NOLA at 10 in the morning, not feeling your best, having to deliver, and to understand how that feels, I think is a really unique perspective to have.
Yes.
And there are so many managers out there who weren't singers who have that encyclopedic knowledge of the art form. I mean, Ken Benson's a huge mentor of mine, and he knows this field a lot better than me.
I've known Ken since I was a baby. So yes, that was a long time ago.
Ken and my dad actually went to the same high school in Brooklyn, just a couple of years apart.
Wow. Oh, so you guys go, wait, you family then.
Yeah. Oh, I love Ken. But it's taking those different experiences. It's for me, surrounding myself with people who are in different skill sets than I have, who have different pluses and minuses. My two colleagues, one of them is a pianist and a writer, and one of them is a mezzo who has an extensive marketing background. And number one, I think building a company with 3 me's would drive me crazy, but also to consciously surround myself with folks who challenge me on a daily basis, who make me better. Number one, thank you to them. And I know they're here somewhere. Zoe and Jenna, you're the best. But also, they make the experience of our artists that much better, to have 2 more brains to pick and 2 more sets of experiences to compare to.
Absolutely.
It's fun. Our staff meetings are a good time.
Oh, that's great. I love to hear that. You got some people coming in. Hi, Sue. Good to see you. Yes. And Jim. Yes, Minneapolis was freezing, but I survived. Now I'm in the snow in Philadelphia now, but I feel better. Michelle, don't sleep on.
You can sleep on my Donza. It was too slow.
Yes, Dave and Ken. And Damien is back. Yes. Hi, Damien. Hi, Ben. Yes, Jordan. So many people coming through today. Yes, hi, Andy. Haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you. And Richard, I want to talk about there is this enigma of artists, of managers and artists, right? There is this kind of, how do I get a manager? When do I know I'm ready to get a manager? Or do you wait for someone to come to you? Or, and I feel like there is like a secret. It's like no one ever really talks about those openly, because everything is like subject to whatever the talent is or wherever you are in your maturation. So I want you to kind of demystify a little bit in the way that you can, what is the relationship and how do you even get to dating somebody,
Yeah, I think number one, I hope that schools can start and continue to educate their students about those next steps, about how to approach a manager, about the right questions to ask when you meet them at a young artist program or meet them at a competition. Number one, I think for young singers, it's super important to be Googleable, to have recordings and a website up. So if I hear you in a competition and you slay, I'm able to look you up. I will say when I started as a manager, I was terrified of some of my colleagues because I had that singer imposter syndrome where I wasn't good enough or important enough to be taken seriously. And all of my colleagues have been so kind and gracious in giving me advice and help. And I hope I can do that for, those folks and also our colleagues who are coming up. In that end, with the education part, I'm doing a residency at Manus this spring to help bridge that gap. I'm doing an hour session with all 36 of their graduating master's and performance diploma students, not to, grab them to represent them, but to give them a first conversation for many of them with an agent, to talk about repertoire, not for a specific season for a young artist program, but for a long-term career trajectory, to just have another set of eyes and ears. What does my resume look like? How are my recordings? Am I singing repertoire that is not only a showcase of my voice, but also something that you can get hired for right now? So I'm really excited to be involved, and thank you to Emma Griffin and Bill Burden for giving me the opportunity. That starts in April, and I think that sort of collaboration is something I really would have loved in school, and something that I know so many of my colleagues have not had. And that doesn't mean every school is not doing it, but I think overall there is this mystery about agents. We are these sort of hooded figures behind a door who are the gatekeepers and can, end your career, when in fact, I think we're all really nice. And, more importantly, we're all really working for not only the survival of our art form, but to protect our artists. I think it's simple networking. For us at Stratagem, we answer every email that we get. It's something that I would want if I was to email a company or a manager, even if it's we're not interested at this time. Do you want some feedback? Like, we really are proactive about continuing those relationships, because honestly, you never know where you're going to be. And I have been subject to both my classmates being really great to me or jerks, and I represent some of the great ones and I don't represent the jerks. It really, you just never know where folks are going to land. It's so easy to be a good colleague.
Yes.
And there's such a saturated market of talent right now. There are so many good singers. I mean, especially for your light lyric sopranos, your lyric mezzos, your lyric baritones, there's a lot of you. So, most importantly, we want artists who fit our culture, fit our personality, even more than being talented, because we can find talented folks. Any manager can. I just want to be treated like a human being. And I also understand that there is a barrier. I often get questions from young artists about resume, materials, recordings, that now that I've been doing this a few years, I think are really obvious. But whenever I get an email like that, I think back to myself, when I was a grad student, would I have known the answer to this? And the answer is almost always no. Not because, I'm a dummy, but because I wasn't exposed to that in school. And I had an amazing network of mentors and teachers. It wasn't their lack of effort either. It was just an industry that I think sometimes prides itself on the mystery.
Yes.
So, I really would encourage singers to reach out to your managerial colleagues, do your research. There's a Ken Benson article that I need to find in Opera News from years ago. And he said that singers need to be tastefully shameless when they reach out to people. Make that connection. I'm much more willing to give a long response on an email to someone who says, my friends XYZ are on your roster. They've had a great experience. I think I would be a good fit because of XYZ, rather than, to whom it may concern, here's a BCC'd email to every agent in the country.
Wow.
That personal touch makes a huge difference. And I will say I have never hired someone from a to whom it may concern email, but I've definitely signed a lot of people who have cold called because of colleagues.
Wow, Justin, that you can't pay for that advice. That's fantastic, because the idea is that you're thinking that you're being a business person by being, formal, but when in fact you're like, let's just get to it. Yes, my friend is Michelle Johnson, and I would talk to her and she told me to reach out to you because I was looking for to be represented. That's great advice. And we got some people saying, yeah. Hi, Martin. Hey. And it's interesting because I knew who you were and you didn't know who I am. I think you knew who I was when I was in Fort Worth. And we thank you, Andy. I walked right up to you and was like, hi. And I don't know if you were taken by surprise with it, but that
was a fun party. That was a really good party. Martin's another BU friend of mine. We studied with the same teacher. He was a year above me. And the Porky Party was good times. I mean, that is one of the things I miss the most about this pandemic, is just not, I mean, obviously I love seeing shows and our clients kill and great art. But that socialization that happens after a show, the really sort of raw emotion, you can't bottle that. I wish we could. But I do think, just treating folks like human beings, to make those connections, I think it's really important to do your research, because our philosophy at Stratagem is we want every artist on our roster to be first in our minds for something, right? Like, there's so much crossover in every FOC. Of course, there are 12 different sopranos who can sing me, but I want every one of those Mimis to be really unique in my brain, because then I can sell it. So if you're emailing managers who have someone who is your age singing exactly your repertoire at a similar timbre, that email might be served best elsewhere. Or to ask around and say, do you know if XYZ is taking people right now? Especially in the pandemic, there are companies who are really not cutting down, but not taking new folks.
Mm-hmm.
There are folks who are expanding aggressively, and then everything in between.
Right.
And it's a simple ask. It's not something people think of a lot, but I think it truly comes across. First of all, we all have a little ego, right? I mean, I was a tenor. I have a lot of ego. No, I try to
y'all do. It's okay. It's okay.
big head. I know. But we all have a little ego. I want to see a client who feels like we would be a good fit, where we could elevate their career. The last thing I want is someone who's tepid about us and we're their third choice.
Mm-hmm.
Because then, like, you're not going to be the first choice in my brain either. We want to find artists that aren't only, at the top houses, but folks who we can service and get there.
Mm.
So it's been really fun for me over the years to help elevate not only established artists, but folks who are in the young artist ranks.
Mm.
We have a wonderful quartet of singers who we affectionately call our secret weapons. And they're folks who are, in the Yap circuit, who we feel have A-house potential, and who we think could really benefit from the guidance, the rep advice, us having their back, to get them to that next level. And I enjoy those conversations immensely, to really build from the foundation that future, to go through flock changes. I was talking to a colleague today, and I changed from baritone to tenor, and now we have two amazing tenors who've changed from baritones, and it's sort of our MO at this point. But those transitions, especially the most recent one, which was Brian Vu, who's incredible, such a star, to watch him, for bad analogy, caterpillar to butterfly in a couple of months, to watch him sing Count Almaviva and a Nozze, and then 3 days later sing for the Met as a tenor. It's one of the most remarkable things I've ever seen from a singer. It was wild. But most importantly, I think with everyone I mentioned, they're friends.
Yeah.
I am invested in them as human beings, and not only as the instrument. And I hope, when I'm retired in 50 years, I hope that that's what's left, that I, cared about them as people. Because, especially for my BU crowd, which, Michelle and Brian, Chelsea Baszler and Martin, they're folks who knew me at a different state than I am now. And they've watched me grow. And that's really, I try not to take that for granted.
Yes, absolutely. You can't, because we are really in this together. If you don't do your job, I can't do my job. And if I don't do my job well, you can't get me more. So it really is this kind of thing. And also, beyond the work, it's your mental, your physical, your emotional. So many singers have families now, and they are, and multiple streams of income outside of just one thing. And so there is this really, as the artist manager, as an umbrella, taking care of the human is extremely important. And I want to talk, we always put this emphasis on young singers, and I want to talk a little bit about a more established singers that you represent, or an art, or what that's like when you are looking for an art, a manager, or when you come and you have a resume and you have this history, and someone comes to you and says, I'm looking for a new direction. Like, I oftentimes we don't get to hear many artist managers speak about a more mature artist versus a young singer coming out of a Yap.
It's a really tough transition for singers to switch managers. I think we all try to make it as transparent as possible. I think the wide majority of artist managers have each other's backs and know that, I've had singers come to me from other managers, and I've had singers leave us for other managers. And I think, number one, it's really impossible not to take that personally. because we're so invested. But I also look back at every artist who's left us over the years, and I hope they're being better serviced by someone else, because I, believe in their talent. And I think every artist that leaves someone, that person believed in your talent. That person believed in you, hopefully as a human being as well. So, I'm looking for an artist that has a shared direction, not only in terms of house size and repertoire, but in terms of what the career is going to look like. I think it's really tough to represent an artist who, we've had artists come to us where like, I want to do 1 gig a year. I can only do XYZ because of a teaching job or kids or whatever the reason may be. And I think it's really hard to keep the career momentum going that you need to survive in this industry, and have something in your life that precludes you from taking gigs. I also have so many singers who have teaching jobs, who have children, who have homes, who balance it incredibly well, better than I ever could. And I really, especially in the pandemic, want to have my singers explore other modes of income. I mean, if the pandemic didn't happen, I wouldn't be doing this Madness residency.
Yeah, well, I would be here talking to you right now.
We all got to pay the bills, right? It's and I hope that every experience that my artists have expands their horizons, not only as a human being, but as an artist, and creates a level of empathy that lets them embody those stories a little bit better. So I think for me, especially when an established artist comes along, I try not to get starstruck because, if they're coming to us, they feel like we can help them.
Right.
They feel like we can help service them. And I really try not to be sort of amazed at the resume, because I want to look at them objectively and make sure that we're the right fit, whether that is with the repertoire that they're singing or with a personality. Because Stratagem, like many other rosters in the country, we've been meeting once a week as a roster. We have done 3 sets of one-on-one check-ins with every artist on the roster now. Like, we don't want any of that sort of backstabby, snipey, this person's taking this from me. I really do want that community feel. And that's a personal choice for me. That's not everybody. So the last thing we want is like one person taking the spotlight. And even worse than that, I don't want to take the spotlight. Stratagem is about the artists, not about me. I'm just a humble facilitator. So, I'm always in awe of the level of artists we're able to represent and who reach out to us. It's one of those things where, Stratagem started January of 2018, sort of out of my other company when my business partner left the business. And I look back and, now 3 years later, I am so thrilled with where we are and never could have imagined these heights in January of 2018. But I'm also looking forward at huge things we can do. With our focus to offstage creatives, with our expansion in the Canadian market, those are things that without the pandemic, I would not have had the brain space, and my staff wouldn't have had the brain space to even start deciphering.
Please talk about that, Justin, because and there was one question about I'm going to get to your question, so don't go anywhere. But I want you to talk about that, because when that was announced, I was like, holy shit, like, what is he doing? And then all of so many amazing talents that you brought on. My dear friend Ellen Jackson, who I love so much, she's a brilliant director. And I just was like, what is Justin doing? So please talk to us about that.
So at my first company, we had a couple of conductors and directors. And I, just being honest with myself, I wasn't ready to service them. I didn't understand how to advance their careers. they were all friends of mine, where we sort of went into that relationship as an experiment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we weren't ready for them, and they weren't ready for us in a lot of ways. It's funny, one of our directors, Werner, who's very, very talented, was the director I used to represent. And now 4 years later, we've come back to this circle, and I think can really help each other now. She's directing this amazing Bohème that they're filming. I think it's done, actually. That I think is going to be such an exciting addition to the digital catalog that's out there. But they're all folks that I knew. They're all folks that I have seen their work, that I have admired as people, and as artists. And especially for the composers, new music is something I'm really passionate about. And I think there are incredible stories to be told with our medium that have been neglected and not given the opportunity to really shine. And, you know, my favorite story is when I first met Lembit Beecher, incredible composer, Sky on Swings of Philadelphia. And
yes.
So
I
many.
love that show. Love that show. Mm-hmm.
When I met him, we were at Opera Philly for the premiere of Sky on Swings, and I just started a conversation with this guy who I was sitting next to. Good half hour, just shooting the shit and talking about the world. And I introduced myself, and I was like, "Oh, are you involved with the show?" And he's like, "Oh, I wrote it." And just that humility. And now, you know, I'm a wreck watching the show next to the composer. Do I laugh when he laughs? Do I like shift where he shifts? But having that opportunity to hear about the work and not, for me, having my manager glasses on, I think is really exciting. And then seeing that piece and Flicka and Marietta just crush. Oh my God. It really.
Yeah. I saw it. It was brilliant. It was brilliant.
And having a soundscape for that piece that I think is really accessible for the European soundscape that we're used to, but having that truly unique American flair. And I think all three of our composers, which I don't want to say American because one of our composers is Canadian British, who's wonderful, Cecilia Livingston. But all three of those composers are storytellers first, and they let the music inform that. And, you know, our conductors are just as comfortable doing a world premiere as they are La Bohème. Our directors are the same. And that Swiss Army knife approach to producing is something we need. Yeah. We need artists who are, I remember when I was in school, if you sang new music, you were very niche-y. You were in this like, oh, you only sing Handel in 21st century? Like that singer really doesn't exist anymore. And we're all getting the education to have more aggressive repertoire on our packages, to tell these important stories. And I think for as a person who listens to a lot of auditions, I want to hear something new. I want to be wowed. You know, that's why we all go to the theater. To even if we're going to a Bohème, you know, we've all seen Bohème hundreds of times. We want to see something new in that Bohème. Yeah. But we have an opportunity when we see a piece by, you know, one of my composers or Missy Mazzoli or Greg Spears, David T. Little, like these soundscapes are essential for our industry to grow. And, you know, we really want to not only have opportunities for our singers to collaborate with these directors, with these composers, with these conductors, but to build new productions of world premiere work from first workshop to last performance with the same team. And we see the Minnesota model work. We see the Philly model work. We see these things that constantly produce work of a certain quality. And one of the biggest things that I've pulled away from that is the consistency of the team, is that understanding of the score and the story. Yeah. So in a vacuum, that's one of the things we'd like to create with that department. And of course, we want to have a Jeff McDonald or an Ellen Jackson, you know, do Not Say together. But all of them have in common that contemporary work and classic work don't need to be mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
And, you know, with our Canadian expansion, we have a lot of our colleagues pushing resources into Europe and pushing, you know, personnel into Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And as we've grown as a company, our European contacts have increased. But I also want to identify with myself. I don't speak fluent French or German. I don't have an office in Munich or Paris.
Mm-hmm.
And a 2-hour flight to Toronto is more accessible than a 6-hour flight to Munich.
Okay.
So, you know, it definitely doesn't strip away our singers' European opportunities, but with a much less robust management market in Canada than in the United States, we saw an opportunity to connect with those companies and most importantly, to create some art.
Great. I love everything about that. I'm so happy for you.
Thank
And
you.
so proud. And it's just wonderful to see it thriving in our industry. You know, it just is an improvement for our industry, you know. And you know, since I got my hand in Canada with Banff, you know, I've gotten to know a little bit more about that system there and the artists. They're so smart.
And, you know, like Banff and Against the Grain, and obviously, you know, Joel being involved in
Oh,
both, and, you know, the COC having, you know, I'm biased because Ari was always a client, but having Amplified Opera as their disruptors and residents, like,
yes.
you know, is there an American company at that size that would do that? I don't know. But I think it's really exciting that the COC has put their stamp on that kind of storytelling.
Absolutely. That was a wonderful move and necessary for them, you know, very necessary.
And they're just so cool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, Ari is someone who, when we met and had ramen at a Whole Foods before we saw Don G at Venture Opera, which I don't think exists anymore in New York, everything she said, I was just like, first of all, I agree, but second of all, I'm like sort of in awe of you. So I'm just going to like sit here very quietly, you know, but we want to collaborate with artists who we vibe with on an artistic level, who want to create the same kind of art that we do.
Yeah.
And
that's what it's all about.
I think for singers, they assume if a manager doesn't want them that they're bad, that we think they're a bad singer. But there are so many singers who I so respect their careers. I think they're amazing artists, but it just doesn't resonate with me. And, you know, when we're assessing artists, at least for my brain, I want to look at the tangible, you know, do I like the timbre? Are they in tune? How are the languages? Like the very nuts and bolts stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But there's that intangible, like I call it it makes me smile factor. But that, like, whatever that thing is that I need to viscerally feel. You know, when I heard Michelle do that Mahler too, it was like, it like grabbed my heart. And every artist on my roster, I feel that way when I either hear their singing or see their work. And if an artist doesn't elicit that response from me, it absolutely doesn't mean they're a bad artist.
Mm-hmm.
It's personal choice.
Yep.
And that's why it's great. There are so many options out there.
Absolutely. I have a question, Andy. I'm getting to your question now. Justin, how you feel about singers who sing crossover literature and opera? Are you interested in those type of singers or solely opera?
So I think, so number one, for Stratagem, every one of our artists brings the musical theater to every audition. I think that crossover is really important. I think there are parts of the musical theater genre that are more accessible to opera companies. Mm-hmm. There's a lot more street scenes than Spring Awakenings. And I love both those shows dearly. But, you know, I think opera singers should be able to do Kander and Ebb, Sondheim, Rodgers and Hammerstein in a not just an opera singer singing musical theater sort of way. So I think it's really interesting when artists have that crossover ability. We have a lot of Lenya winners on our roster. We have ATC participants. We have, you know, the competitions that really push the boundaries of what opera singers can do. Mm-hmm. I do think for Stratagem knowing itself, we are much more able to promote opera singers at opera companies producing musicals, mm-hmm. rather than the sort of cattle call style, you know, go sing for Telsey and, you know,
Mhm.
16 bars it. That's not my expertise. We don't do TV. We don't do film. It's not my wheelhouse. It's not what I know. And I think that's sort of where we separate compared to like a UIA or an Encompass, where, those folks have that expertise.
Right.
They have those contacts. When Telsey calls people, I'm not first. So I really try to embrace folks of all genres, but to say that Stratagem is not an operatically based firm would just be false.
Mm-hmm. That's I'm glad you're very honest about that, because some people would be like, oh no, we have all the context. But that's great though. That's wonderful. Yes, and you have, I mean, UIA has done, well, of course, Kathy Olson and Encompass, she has people on Netflix and, Hulu and all the, like the star, and then she has her opera crew. And then UIA has built a whole, as well, television and film and all that. And what do you, like, do you feel like as an artist manager who will be in the industry for a very long time, because you're young and opera's not going anywhere, it's not dead, all this BS that people say, it's just gonna evolve and change, and like we all do. But like, how do you feel the pressure to do that, although you've done this major expansion, of course, into in North America? But do you feel that any kind of pressure or thinking, that's something that I'd like to do down the line?
Not at all. I really, to learn that world in its entirety, and I wouldn't want to do it unless I learned it in its entirety, would just be a huge detriment to my operatic work, but also disrespectful for my colleagues who do it. Mm-hmm. So we are more than happy to share our clients. If they want a TV agent, if they want a modeling agent, if they want a theater agent, like, I'm all good. I just need to share your calendar. But if those opportunities come up, one of our wonderful mezzos, Anna Lorenzo, is doing intimate apparel at LCT. And, we were happy to, work with them on that process. But that's a sort of blue moon project at LCT.
Right.
For Flying Over Sunset or, a straight play. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people on the list before us. Right. But we've had multiple singers do off-Broadway debuts. We've had singers do regional theater, national tours of things. So we don't want to limit ourselves and say, no, we won't get involved. Mm-hmm. But every artist on our roster is opera first and foremost, with accoutrements of other things.
Awesome. Fabulous. And that's the new wave. That's the way it has to be. Yes. I'm curious hey, Richard, how are you? First of all, I'm curious how much social media protocols play in managers scouting potential artists.
Unless it's something really negative, I don't scour people's Facebooks before I represent them. I do talk to many colleagues that they've worked with. Mm-hmm. Not only to make sure they're prepared and a professional, but that they're good colleagues. I think social media is really another way to express yourself. Mm-hmm. It definitely helps us at Stratagem stay connected with our colleagues. And we've put a renewed focus on our social media presence. But I would say for my career, social media has never played a part in a positive way of signing an artist or not. There have been a few instances of things we wanted to stay away from that were not us searching their social media, but I would say overall reputation within the industry, mm-hmm. pointing to certain things that have been posted. So, I really think that, we as operatic artists are so exposed on a 360 view that everyone has to be careful about what they post.
Truly.
I mean, when I see, back when we had auditions, artists trashing companies in the hallway, it's wild to me. Do you not want to get hired? Or they'd go to the Panera next to Opera America and have the same conversations. Like, go a couple blocks away. Like, I have some of the same complaints. I get it. But, my wife and I had a rule that we would always wait for 4 blocks before starting to talk about a show, no matter positive or negative, because we understood how much work those artists put into a show, even if it was not our cup of tea. And I really feel like singers should do the same thing. Just like go to a bar. I don't know, text your friend. Just be respectful and know that even if you have a bad experience at an audition or someone's in a bad mood, like I try to put myself in other people's shoes, and maybe they just had a bad day.
Absolutely. And we all have them. Yeah. Richard, I think he said, videos and followers. Of course, there is this idea that some companies hire certain singers at one time. Maybe the pandemic doesn't count anymore. They hire certain artists because there was a time where social media followers, people thought it meant butts and seats, and it actually just does not.
And I'm happy that some of my clients are successful. One of our bases, Nat Anchel, is the TikTok queen now. His GBF channel is like, I've lost track of how many followers he has. But I don't think that impacts how I service his career in any way. I just think it's exciting to see someone that I really admire have that sort of presence.
Absolutely. Hey, Ben. Oh,
thanks, Ben.
That's cool.
Ben's been in the seat. He worked for Bill. And it's really exciting to see what a diverse group of experiences that managers have had. To have Keith Chambers and Daniel Welsh starting their firm, to have we can only improve the marketplace of ideas by letting other people in, and even to have the former Cami gentlemen with their own boutiques, Nate and Michael. It's exciting. It's really cool to see the managers have come together in our way to help support our artists, but to talk to managers and not have it be sort of, back when I was a singer, this happened. Because I have those conversations all the time,
right?
But to just have that different lenses to look through, I think is really cool. And to also see our managerial colleagues taking administrative roles as well, and to see the exciting group of administrators, with David Lamelli's news on the top of my brain. It's just exciting to have these really great people in places. Not only, of course, like I'm biased. I would love for them to help my singers, but just to make our industry a better place too.
Absolutely. I had another question, but William had a question. It was since the collapse of Columbia. What?
I think on the vocal side, the speed and grace which Minerva and Magnum Opus have popped up, it's incredible. Kudos to those guys. And I think, there are more boutiques than there ever have been. And that's a good thing. I don't think that Columbia, unfortunately closing because of the pandemic has dampened or darkened the view of the industry moving forward. Maybe the style in which folks are represented, but look at IMG, they're thriving.
Yeah. Matthew was on a few months ago. Matthew Werner was on, and we had a wonderful conversation, about the industry. And he spoke. He said, "You need to have more managers on." He said, "You need to have more of us on to speak and talk about it." And I was like, "Well, I'd love to." And he's from the, I don't want to say the old school. Sorry, Matthew, that's not what I meant. You know what I meant when what I mean. But the tradition of how it's always been in that way. And now he was really excited to see so many managers coming in, so many young young people coming into their own business.
I hope there's more. I really do. Especially just having the artist manager cohort reflect the singers. To be one of the few managers of color, to share some experiences with clients, but learning how to diversify my toolbox as best I can. I just hope that some of these programs that are happening at St. Louis, at UIA with Jeff Larson and L2, that we are producing a well-educated and discerning group of administrators that can share those experiences with their clients.
Yes.
For me, we really concentrate on having our singers of color not be pigeonholed within ethnically specific repertoire, but taking into account that some of those artists want to do those roles and that they can be used as a way in to companies to showcase those artists, but to never get them stuck there.
Right.
Or labeled as like only that. And I think that process is really exciting. And I think we have, as an industry, looked at ourselves in the mirror these last 11 months, and improvements are coming, and it's exciting. And again, by no means are me or Stratagem perfect, but I just want to inform myself in the best way of what's happening. And, with any manager coming behind me, I love having those conversations. What is their future? I mean, I remember sitting with Anna when I first started, and Alex when I first started, and picking their brains. And I, thought it was so far away that I would be the person in the other seat. Here I am, right?
Here you are. Here you are doing your thing. And I wanted, Anna's my agent in America, and we have the conversations around race, because she knows I'm very vocal, and I've always, since I'm in the beginning, I know this person feels this way about me. I know this person feels so, and she's very open about expressing to me when these things come up. And I wonder, as a man of color, as an Asian man, oftentimes, you see Asian singers or Asian instrumentalists, but never in leadership positions, or never running their companies as representing in this way. And I want you to speak about your experience, and also to encourage other business people of color or other artists who may have that desire to run their own management company. I had Anna come and speak to some singers during the pandemic, but because it was important for them to see her, not just to hear her, to see her, and to speak about her experience and running her company.
Yeah, I mean, Anna was one of the first industry, and how it was to be not only a person of color, but a woman in the industry. And not because Anna is your manager and because Anna is here, but Anna is someone who I really admire. So I think, number one, my experience is different than a lot of my Asian colleagues. So I was adopted when I was a baby from Korea, and grew up with adopted parents who are white. And number one, they never made me feel less than or less than part of the family, ever. And that gave me confidence that I probably didn't deserve. But I had a conversation with a new colleague a few weeks ago, and I guess they hadn't looked at our website. And while we were on the call, they looked at our website. It's like, oh, you're Asian with Werner as your last name. I just didn't expect, blah, blah, blah. And it's a fun place to be with people. And I try to, have it lightheartedly. The first audition I ever did as a manager, the pianist got up from the bench and said, "Thank God I get a break." And I mean, what are you going to do besides me saying, "Well, I failed college piano twice. You don't want me to play."
Right.
You know, but even my Asian colleagues, my Asian clients who grew up, you know, either second generation and speaking, you know, Korean in their household, to those who are first generation. And I mean, there's a huge cohort of Asian singers, especially in the American collegiate system, who are not given the language support they need. And that's not anything that I have ever experienced besides I had an audition as a singer once where the panelist asked why my English was so good and where I grew up. So, of course, I have dealt with a little bit of pushback because of my race, but I never want to be defined by it. But I do absolutely think it colors my experience. And I want to develop the empathy to my colleagues to better understand their stories. I actually had the opportunity through Onsite to do an EDI training with their staff that I finished yesterday. And just having that experience of those sessions to talk through these issues, to get some advice, was really even more eye-opening than I thought it would be. And again, I'm never going to be perfect. I don't think any of us are.
No.
But to just, I want to be able to communicate with all of my artists, no matter what their race, gender, creed, nationality, in a way that is not only servicing their career, but making them feel comfortable. So, you know, I reached out to an Asian colleague who is an assistant at a firm. And to my knowledge, she's the only other Asian member of our manager cohort. And it was really cool to be able to share some experiences with her that I haven't been able to. And to hear from her that I was someone who she wanted to network with because we had those shared experiences. You know, I think it's really important for us to, again, continue to reflect the folks we're representing. And I don't want to be able to count the amount of managers of color on one hand. You know, it's shocking to me. And it's no one's fault. But it's something I think we need to be proactive in increasing the pipeline for young administrators. I mean, I had a wonderful intern this summer, Chandler Johnson, who's now in the OTSL fellowship, and Santa Fe this summer. He's a star. And hearing about some of his experiences trying to break into administration as a Black man, it blew my mind. And I'm better for knowing those stories. I'm more equipped to deal. And I'm so pumped for him just as a person who I know is going to change this industry in a positive way, that he has gotten these opportunities, well deservedly so. So yeah, I mean, it's a constant evolution. I mean, I'm a infinitely different manager now than I was a year ago. I mean, pre-pandemic, you know, a picture popped up today. The last gig I was at with my wife was Kentucky's Noxie. And it popped up on Instagram. We were both like, oh, that was a year ago? Like that seems like 10 years ago and yesterday at the same time. So yeah, I definitely don't want to like stand on a pedestal and be treated differently because I'm Asian. And I'm sure my colleagues of color, not only managers, but administrators, would say the same thing. But it does give me a certain sensitivity to my colleagues who are pigeonholed in racial rep. That, you know, being told as an undergrad, oh, do you sing the Mikado aria? That would be great for you. Like, oh, are you going to be in Nixon in China forever? You know,
Right.
ticky tack shit. It's just it's so unacceptable on every level.
On every
So yeah, it's absolutely colored my experience, and I think there's infinitely more opportunity for young administrators of color than there was 5 years ago. And I'm sure in 5 years we'll be looking back and be like, oh God, how little were we doing for our, for the pipeline.
Absolutely.
But I want to keep developing that pipeline the best I can. And to give especially singers other options.
Mm-hmm.
So
I often Kenny Overton and I joke, because I think he's one day, whatever he decides to do, he's gonna be a brilliant. If he decides to go into artist manager, he's already doing that anyway. And I joke with him all the time. I was like, I wish I had that desire to do. I don't want to do that. That whole idea of like, what you guys do, I don't want to do that. But I said I wish, because I think in this time, where's the black company? Not that it's to be a black company, but I'm just saying, like, the idea, like, if I wanted to start an agency or something, and like, where is that person, and why isn't that person doing the same thing you guys are all doing? Like, what are the resources that it needs? And Ken, okay, before you answer that, I want to get Ken Kellogg's question in, because I think that's important.
Oh, they can do so many things to make my job easier. No, I mean, so first of all, I think the hustle never ends for either party. Every singer, and I need to start saying artist because now I represent non-singers. Every artist on my roster came with a dowry of contacts. And by no means am I going to ignore those. That's where we start. Companies where these artists have relationships, square one. So I think number one is just communicating. There are instances in my career that have gotten less and less as I have calibrated what kind of artists I want on my roster, where I'll find out someone's on a gig from Facebook or Instagram. I'll book auditions for people and they're like, oh, I'm at a wedding. Can't do it. So just being really transparent about communication is number one. And also being really, real is not the right word, but being honest with your manager about what you're comfortable with and what you're not. Because we can service you and help you not fall into those pitfalls if we just know. And can be really proactive about not making the artist feel uncomfortable or not putting them in a situation where that risk is there. So number one is communication. I think I asked a lot of my singers this pandemic. We have beautiful HD video for 90% of our singers on the website that the guys at Conduit Studios did. And to have my singers travel during a pandemic to risk their lives collaborating with a pianist, and hats off to them. But it really, I talked to 2 administrators today who said those videos were the tipping point to hiring our artists.
Wow.
So, new videos, website updates, keeping us up to date in terms of, what's feeling good and what's not. I think the preconception with singers is that a manager is their whole team. But I think we're just one tool in the toolbox. I'm not your voice teacher. I'm not your coach. But I have an ear, and hopefully all of my colleagues have the ear, to be able to, make corrections and hear things that are stronger and weaker. And most importantly, what's hireable. So, it's little things like press kit updates. And I mean, it really all comes down to communication. As I'm thinking through these ideas in my head, as long as I know and can take action without being reactionary, I'm good. It really, I want to know what my artists want so I can help them achieve that.
Absolutely. And sometimes, as an artist, you are either afraid to ask, or you feel like your manager's too busy, or there was a one time that you reached out to them and they didn't have time for you, or whatever. That's why the relationship is so important. That's why the communication, and it's also something that you don't learn in school. They don't teach you how to do those things, or even in the yaps. Even in the yaps, it's all about you being the pretty princess in the box, and everyone like walking past, and you want the one to want you. You know what I mean? It's this whole idea that, which is all blown up now, of course, because of COVID and everything's leveled and all these things. And
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Everything's different now, but you must learn how it's like the business. Like what I was saying when years ago when Matthew Epstein was talking to us about being the CEO and you are your, that didn't mean anything to me when I was 19, 20, 21, 24. At now where I am now, I'm like, oh, okay. And some of that stuff I was doing, but without even putting a thing on it as a business. But yeah, that communication, that back and forth, and the trust.
Yeah, and Nate Wentworth made this analogy, and I really like it. For every singer, your team is your board. We help advise on repertoire, on what gigs you take and don't, but it's your choice. Mm-hmm. And number one, I think cultivating that team is incredibly important with folks that you trust. Mm-hmm. And making sure that those opinions not mesh, but mm-hmm. push each other in a really realistic way. Absolutely. And constructive, most importantly. Mm-hmm. But I think, I just want artists to be proactive. The thing I tell my singers all the time pre-pandemic, go to gigs that you're not singing in, shake people's hands, make those contacts. The more important part of me going to see a show is 50-50 watching my artist perform and meeting with the general director afterwards. Yeah. I want to hear from those folks. Was my client a good colleague? Are they someone you'd hire back again? What are you thinking for programming? And also, meeting all the other singers in the cast. Like, if I wasn't in Fort Worth, we wouldn't have met.
No.
And just being a human about it.
Being a human about it. It's that humanity a thing. So if someone wants to start their own agency, Justin, what would your suggestion be? I shouldn't just say someone, but you know what I mean.
So it's an interesting time because I actually think it's a really amazing opportunity right now to start a shop. Of course, there's not a lot that you can do at the moment besides the mining for contacts and networking. Mm-hmm. But there is an incredible amount of talent in the pool right now from lots of different factors, from universities pumping out so much good singing to artists who are still available from some of the firms that have unfortunately closed down. So I think number one is really quantifying your taste to not just be what you like, but also not to be what other people like. It's always been a struggle for me to think of, this company needs this, without feeling very passionate about the person I'm selling. Mm-hmm. But if you just send the people you love, if you get someone with opposite taste as you, you're never going to work at that company. Mm-hmm. So it's an always balance. It's always cultivating those relationships. And, I think really having a good idea of the identity of the company. Like, what are you trying to achieve? Is it, jumping on the bandwagon with established artists that you really admire? Is it developing artists from schools and young artist programs? Is it concentrating on a certain market? Is it, opera, musical theater, or straight theater, or both, or all? So having that sort of business plan in the back of your head, knowing that's going to change, I think is really important. But also, the reason these firms that have popped up have been so successful, all the boutiques that have popped up, is they're folks that have been in the business for a long time and know a lot of people. Mm-hmm. It's not like Kristen Cowden or Jeff Larson or Gloria Parker or Miguel Rodriguez came into the industry with a blank Rolodex. Right. I didn't come into it with a blank Rolodex. I had so many people who I'd worked with at my opera company, who I interacted with at IMG. Getting to know the New York manager scene with them coming to my company shows. Mm-hmm. That's how Ken and I met. Mm-hmm. And he's one of the people who put that seed in my brain.
Mm.
Sort of, thanks, Ken, for putting me in this job. But, again, I think this keeps coming up. Like, you never know where people are going to land. Just don't be an asshole. Like, be nice to people. So I actually think, well, number one, I think we as managers would all be really enthusiastic about more folks, especially those who have the prerequisite knowledge to serve as artists. We'd be really excited for those opportunities, because I think every manager that I know and respect has a list of artists that aren't right for them, but would be right for someone else.
Right.
And I think anytime we can diversify the viewpoints that we have in our field, we're in a better place.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, and I think you surround yourself with people who do different things than you.
Yes, that. Listen, Oprah, although she signs the checks, everybody that is around her in her orbit knows their job extremely well and knows more than she does about their job, and that's how. Hi, Mark Campbell. Oh my God.
Hi, Mark. I mean, with Mark, when my wife was working at the Dramatists Guild and they were starting their librettist group, I ran into Mark into the hallways of Opera America, and I chased him down, and I was like, my wife. You work with Rebecca, and now Mark is one of my best friends in the field.
Yes. Listen, Mark didn't know me. I friended him on Facebook.
Bold move.
That's how I am. Like, that's how I know everybody. I've always been like that. I walk right up to people and be like, hi, but I'm making my business to know. That's a part of my business, Karen Slag, is to know everybody in the industry.
I mean, I get it. And it's super important. And, Mark introduced me to Renee Orth, who's one of my composers, because they had worked on her first opera together. Like, this world is so small in such an amazing way.
Yeah.
To get to know folks. And there are these sort of mystical figures in our field. I remember the first time I had a beer with Mike Mays, I was like, Mike Mays. It was just like out of body experience for me. Even I remember the first time I hadn't seen Michelle and Brian in a long time. And we had a wonderful dinner in the Berkshires, where I didn't realize Michelle's dog was under the table for 3/4 of the meal, because very well behaved. And having that experience as equals, but also Michelle and Brian taking this like scared 18-year-old that was in my head and making it such a collaborative experience, I think is, God, opera just has good people.
We do.
It really is.
And, and this pandemic has actually made people even relax even more to show really who they are, on the inside. And I love that. They are really some amazingly special people in our industry.
Absolutely.
For sure. For sure. You guys have any more questions? Everyone's giving you love. If I put up everything on here, yes, Anna and Kevin. Congratulations, Kevin, on your new appointment. Congratulations. Yes, Nagwanda. Amazing. Kevin Thompson. Yes. So as we are wrapping up, because I could do this forever. I love this. This is my other job. I love this. I love this, what I do, sitting and talking to people and just being inspired and sharing these stories. As we're wrapping up, please just leave us with some goodness, some caramel, some warm, inspiration.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to continue having conversations with folks who have similar art creation responsibility, because it is a responsibility to be in this field. It is a responsibility to leave opera a better place than we took it. So I really want to continue the conversations with whoever is interested to do it, even if there's not an obvious collaboration in front of our faces. Networking is my favorite part of the job. The friendships I've made in this job are some of the best I've ever had. And we have such an opportunity now with the pace of our world slowed down to create a framework for what's next.
Yes.
And there's such good happening everywhere. within the shitstorm of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
That I really just want to continue being a tiny part of it.
Absolutely. Well, we want to continue to support you and your roster and your agency, and and just putting out good work and good people, and to keep our art thriving in any way that we can. Michelle, some danza. Listen, I did a recital. At a school. I was, I was like, well, let me go back and, sing these 24 Italian artists to show them that they're, that they can be done by mature. Honey, they whooped my behind when I was working on those things. I was like, oh, here I am trying to show the kids, and these Exactly. Thank you, Lisa. Well, thank you, Justin, for your. Where's a question? See, somebody always keeps in with a question. Dave, on singers that needed additional molding.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think for me, we have the privilege at Stratagem to think big, and when we take a singer, our goal doesn't always work, is to get them to an A house level, or they're already at an A house level. So when we take young singers who have shorter resumes than some of our established folks, we have big plans for them. And I think, also considering the diversified portfolios of those folks, someone like Jenny Moser, who is the architect of Stage Time, that was a big plus for me, not a negative.
Right.
I think the connection she has through Stage Time, any singer would kill for that Rolodex.
Yes.
And, to, again, create something that will leave our industry in a better place is huge. So, I think we are very careful with the singers we take who don't have the receipts as a more established artist. But I want to go into every audition and be wowed. I want to hear that voice and lock onto it and need to work with that person.
There you go. Awesome. Well, thank you, Justin. You have to come back at another time, and maybe we'll get a panel of people together and have a fun panel.
Love it. Absolutely.
All right. Stay on. Don't go anywhere. All right, y'all. I'm so great to see you all. See next week. Oh, I have a good one next week, a good panel next week. So come back and go to Philadelphia Orchestra and go listen to Michelle Can Kill Florence Price on the stream. It starts tonight, and I think it ends up, I think it's a week. It's up for a week. The tickets are about $17. It's not a lot of money. That's like 2 Starbucks trips. Calm down. Support that sister, because she's amazing, and support the orchestra. Thank you so much. I'll see y'all next week, same time, same bad channel. All right.
Thank y'all.
Bye.